Whether you're new to pool and practicing the basics, or a more experienced player performing drills to improve your shot making and positional play, the Drill Partner is perfect for you.
Michael Panozzo, sir.
What's going on?
How are you, buddy? Are we going to stay out of trouble today?
I hope not.
Yeah.
Kind of boring.
It wouldn't be any fun, Mike. Wouldn't be any fun. I meant to go on yesterday. We meant to go on yesterday, but I just got back from Vegas, Mike, and I was a little wore out. So
I understand. I mean, all those late nights with Collins.
Yeah.
You know how that goes.
I got to see that guy in like a week, man. I'm flying back out. When I leave in a week, Mike, I'm going to be gone for like a month. You know that? A month. Yeah. That's brutal.
That is brutal.
I feel like there's been so many trips like this throughout the year, and I got to be honest with you, I'm a little wore out. So,
well, here, look at it this way. What if you think of how the pool players feel? How do they do it?
Well, believe me, I got a lot more respect for them this year than what I did before, because I got a whole like thinking about Shane being on the road for whatever it was, like 8 weeks or something like that. You know what I mean? Globetrotting.
It's a serious grind for these guys. It's a serious grind, and then they have to perform.
Laundry and living out of a suitcase, and can't get on any kind of good routine. But yeah, I get it, man. I get it. It's rough, and then the performance part is a whole other level, and like staying like mentally engaged, and then pairing the mental toughness with the physical abilities, right? Then you're trying to achieve things and then stay focused. It's just it's rough. It's rough, buddy.
Gotta be.
So anyhow, thanks everybody for hanging out with us this afternoon. We got lots on the agenda today, including the World 8-Ball Championship, as I'm sure a lot of you saw the winner of that. So congratulations out to Josh to start off with. But before we get going, I got this Panthera that we're moving, and so hit me up if you'd like to join in. 1 for 10, 7 for 50, or 20 for 100. And it's trying to move the cube before I head out to Hanoi. So I got to leave, like I said, Mike. Next week we're going to Sacramento for the Brendan Crockett Memorial,
right,
and then take a little bit off, a couple days off out there in California, and then my first time going overseas, buddy. So Lord help me.
Yeah, just just buckle up and be ready for it. It's gonna be a long, it's those are talk about a grind. Those long flights are, they're not easy to fade either.
I'm not ready for it, Mike. My long flight is maybe like 4 hours, and then now I just like this morning I went to go see the chiropractor, because every time I go on a trip, I'll come back and I'll get lined up. So I don't even know how it's going to be on that 20+ hour flight.
You better find out if there's a chiropractor on the flight.
If there is, I'll gladly sign up.
8 hours in, you're gonna need some stewardesses to walk on your back. Or flight
attendant for that. Yeah. I got to get some good stretch before I take off. But all right, Mike, let's jump on in. There's lots going on in the pool world. Seattle just finished up. World 8-Ball finished up as well. I think a lot of players, at least here domestically, are heading out to the Wolf's Den for the last big event here in the U.S. before Hanoi. Where do you want to start off with, buddy?
Well, let's start off in New Zealand. I mean, it was not just World 8-Ball. There was Women's World 9-Ball. There was juniors. I mean, there was a lot going on for sure. I mean, the big talk was obviously around the World 8-Ball because of all the controversy around Josh and Albin and what players were there and what players weren't there, and does this win have an asterisk with it, or things like that. So, but
does it, Mike?
No, not to me. It doesn't. And here's why I say no. It's not. Well, I mean, this one's kind of like on the fence, because normally I would say, listen, it's not Josh's fault that the other players didn't go. Okay, when players don't show up to an event who could have gone to the event, then I say, the field was the field. Now, if they were stopped from going to the event, then I would put an asterisk on it for sure. But they weren't. They chose to. The thing that makes that tricky is that Josh chose to skip it as well, but didn't. so that
I ain't showing up.
That makes it a little funny, but like I said, overall, anybody who wanted to play could play. of the top players. They chose not to, so that's not the fault of that's. And I say that because if someone else had won it, I would still call it World 8-ball champ because it's not wouldn't have been, Ryan's fault that the other players didn't show up. He played the field that was in front of him and won. So in this case, it was Josh, and it just makes it a little funny because of his announcement ahead of time. What do you think?
You know, I'm torn, Mike. To be honest with you, I'm not of the like I posted before the event or right at the beginning of the event that it's more of like I think I posted it like it's the New Zealand Open or non-Open 8-ball championship, and I wouldn't consider it a world championship. And then I've had like a few days to kind of let it digest a little bit, and I don't know if I would say that still. I mean, yeah, the field was what it was. Nobody held a gun to anyone's head, and while I respect the players who didn't take part in going out there, you know what I mean, and what that
Yeah,
symbolized, there were still plenty of players who did participate, and this reminds me of like years of like World 10 ball, for example, when like you got a Wojciech in there winning it, where you got these what we would consider like middle of the tier guys, Latin American player facing them in the finals or whatever. You know what I mean? Like in years past, Mike. And
right.
so like I think about like the Polish players who were there. You still had some strong Asian players. You had like guys like Carlo in there as well. So does it water it down for me? I mean, to an extent,
Well, yeah,
but
I mean, it absolutely waters it down a little bit because,
yeah,
if you look at who wasn't there, you're talking probably about, 8 or 10 of the top 15 players. So that puts a dent in a field. But like I said, you know, unless people were told they can't come, then, if you choose not to come, that, that should not affect the people who did show up to play.
Josh was a medalist in last year's World 8-ball, if I remember correctly, Mike. I think he was in top 4 along with Federer, and maybe I'm thinking about World 10 ball a couple years ago.
Yeah, 10 ball, probably. Yeah,
Yeah,
10 ball.
but
8 ball was,
he's coming off of a semifinal at the U.S. Open.
yeah.
So like don't don't be the victim of the moment where like you want to go and throw shade on the guy's greatness. Like he's still a monster, and there's still a good chance that he would have been in there playing on a Sunday. Now, would we have rather have seen him face the likes of Federer and Francisco and
Yeah, of course.
obviously SVB? Yeah, absolutely. And the field could have been a lot more stout. But yeah, people are going to remember it by the lack of field. But at the end of the day,
People remember it that way for like the next month, and a year from now, when you look at the list of champions, it'll just be Josh Filler's 8-ball champion. That's
you think the fans are going to let this go after a month, Mike? Because I'm not so sure.
Yeah, no, I think that they'll fans will continue to ride Josh, but in the history books, it's going to say he won the World 8-ball championship in 2024.
I always say this, Mike, is that winning will cure all. When you win, that's the remedy to fix things. But he won, and it didn't fix things, Mike. More importantly, it gave people more ammunition to troll him and to needle him. And I can only imagine how it's going to be out in December in Florida. The American fans can be a little brutal, and they love Josh's low hanging fruit for him. And
Yeah,
I'm also
so. But what we're talking about is we're talking about one guy here relative to the whole event.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, this is all about Josh. So he wasn't the only player in the event. The event isn't all about Josh. He won it. He was the big story for what he said ahead of time. If he hadn't said that ahead of time, we wouldn't even be having this discussion. Meanwhile, he's going right from this event to the China Open, which is another WPA event. So, WPA sanctioned event. So I think what he's basically doing is he wishes he wouldn't have sent that letter out the first time, because he planned on milking every tournament that he could until they tell him he can't play anymore. And part of me doesn't have a problem with that.
Yeah, um, I'm kind of with you, and I know I got in his ass a little bit whenever we had the show a couple, last week or whatever it was, but like had he, like we talked about before, had he not sent that letter, I wouldn't have been as fired up about it or passionate about it, because
Yeah.
I would understand. And this reminded me of something. Well, never mind. I won't mention that part. But um, him playing the China Open is interesting as well. I figured like once you've already ridden that wave, you might as well keep on seeing it through. So
Yeah, listen, like
uh,
I said, he's just saying, I'm going to play. I'm going to keep playing in any event that I can that's got a big prize money, and I'm over in this part of the world, and yada yada, until someone tells me I'm banned. That's what he wrote in his little, response. Was once I'm banned, then I'll deal with it then, and I will side with World Nine-Ball Tour. Then is what he said, what he wrote. So, he's and China Open. I would imagine you'll see Albin there, Mario He, all those guys. They'll all play the China Open, and they're all WNT guys. So they just didn't, wear the ribbon, as they say.
yeah, I'm curious to see like I don't want to say what's going to be the fallout, but what's going to happen over the coming months, just given what happened over there in
Well,
in
you'll
New
have
Zealand.
you'll have the front row seat in Hanoi, because Hanoi is when all the the flag bearers and the
Yeah,
scabs, whatever you want to call it, that's the first time they'll all be together. And so you'll get a first hand view in Hanoi of whether there's any weirdness or icy treatment of anybody, or whether they all just kind of hug and move on.
yeah. I want to just address this comment here from Fred in the chat. He says that's because it's still being talked about, Molina. It's not fair to keep it up. Listen, Josh made his bed and he's going to lay in it. So Um, it was a storyline going into it. It was a storyline once he decided to play, and it's still a storyline even after. Just given the fact that number one, he's a world eight ball champion, but with that comes with a lot of ridicule, right? And that's what he's facing. That the stuff online was surprising, Mike. I'm we're used to seeing fans be passionate, but this is like a whole other level of of pushing and needling and talking shit to him, and even like on his pages. Then you see the Pro Bird Series post, where they're like, "All hail King Josh," and World Eight Ball Champion, and it seems like they got no awareness of what's going on outside of like the Predator bubble, Mike. I got to be honest with you, because their
Well,
their their posts could not be more. I don't want to say insensitive, but just like, do you know what's being said online about
yeah, well, I
about
think I think
you?
that the post that they put out before that kind of showed that they were hearing everything, right? The post where they wrote about, you know, the best players in the world are out here, and we're all taking, what I can't remember all the words in that post, but it
Is
was
that them?
it
Was
was
that the
it
Pro
was
Beard Series trolling the fans and giving like a middle finger to them, Mike? You feel like?
no, I think that they were just trying to say, everything's fine over here in New Zealand. The event's great. We're playing for a lot of money. There's 4 divisions. Players are playing their hearts out. Whatever, that was their thing, and it seemed to be more about them than the players. But either way, I mean, they that to me was recognition that they were not completely oblivious to the what was going on in social media, but they were choosing to not address it.
Look, man, as many reels and posts and stories and whatever else they make, they're aware of what's going on social media. Now, whether or not they give a shit or not is a completely different story. I don't think it gives them any more fans or any more love as far as like public favor goes, but um, I'm not sure that they care at this point because they really haven't made any effort to like communicate with people or show that they're aware. I saw one thing when the women started complaining about the format. They acknowledged that in a story, which was surprising to me because that was like the only like social media type response that they gave to the event. But like saying, "Oh, everything's great," and the field is, as the best that it can be, is like, really? Like you
But
you
it just
you
yeah. I mean,
want to
we
you
thought
want to troll them more after that, Mike.
yeah. It was kind of a yeah. I don't know. It was a weird press release. I mean, it talked about how matches could go a maximum 45 games, and I'm like, no. I mean, a best of 5 sets, races to 4, or race to 5?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So best of 3 race to 5. I mean, you're not talking about 45 games. And then it was like, which is the equivalent of a race to 27 or 28. Like, no, that would be kind of best of 54. So I'm not sure where someone wasn't proofreading something, but it was like you were trying a little bit too hard to rationalize what everybody, for the most part, doesn't like. Now, Christina afterwards posted about how she thought how she liked the best of 5 set format and how difficult it was and how long the matches were and things like that. So there are players who like it, but I think for the most part, we've all learned for 2 or 3 years that overall the players don't want this, don't like it. And, it just kind of, this is what it's going to be. So if you're going to go there, just be ready to play it. I think best of 5, short sets, especially winter break, that's brutal. Winter breaks in a race to 4 set.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a little bit. So, but it is what it is, and it was unusual to hear Allison speak up publicly about it. Part of me wanted to respond. I mean, I kind of get it, but part of me wanted to respond. Well, did you not know the rules before you decided to fly to New Zealand?
They knew.
And if you did, then this seems like a bad time to address that. So, anyways.
Well, I love players going and speaking their opinions, but I'm also of the mindset where I don't think the players know what is best for the optics of it. Because if it were just up to the players, Mike, they would play a race to 13 every time and alternate break, and it would drag on for 4.5 hours. And that's not made for TV. It's not made for, viewing purposes and things like that. Now, I think there's some middle ground to it. And I like, thinking outside the box when it comes to it. But at the end of the day, much the same to the men. Like, if you show up, why are they going to give you any of their mind? Why are they going to give what your opinion any weight? Now if you speak with your actions and say, I'm not going to show up because of this, then you're going to force their hand, right? Like, if the best players say, hey, we don't want to do this, we're not going to do it. But if they're still showing up, it's kind of like you're never going to get
they pretty much, the top players, at least in the U.S., showed that when they tried to run the Pro Billiards Series in the U.S. and it failed. Pretty much, unless there was a big international tournament, because the only players in those events were Europeans. So,
there's plenty of them like that. Yeah.
So, which is why you are not likely to see another Pro Billiards Series event in the U.S. aside from the one in Las Vegas, whether that's going to be, continue to be held at the Rio with CSI or not. But I don't think you'll see any other ones in the U.S. because U.S. players here they announced pretty boldly that they have no interest in supporting it.
Yeah, and despite that, they're still full steam ahead wherever they can get someone to put on the event outside of the U.S. Which God bless them, let them keep on rolling with it. I'm glad that the women spoke up, but I hope that they let their actions go along with it. Like I mentioned, Mike, I don't think they will, because I think that if they still had another event with the same format, they would still show up and participate. The women's final was great. I mean, you still had Siming Chin versus Rubel and Amit, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Two premier warriors in the female division, Mike and
Rubel. She's amazing. She doesn't even, she didn't even show up that often.
No. I mean, she was the 2012, I think, World 10 Ball champion for the women's, and then it takes like a long break, and then she shows back up again, and she's won world teams now, and she's
fun to watch.
She's a monster through and through, Mike.
Person, and she's great. So it was great. So I didn't think anybody was going to beat Siming Chen the way she was playing going into that final. She was just crushing people. But Rubelin, she's a tough player. So good to her, and she's what, 42?
Is she?
Spring chicken, yeah. Sure.
Yeah. Well, she still plays like a young 20-year-old,
I
and
consider her Hall of Fame worthy, or pretty close.
if she ain't Hall of Famer, Mike, we got to reconsider the criteria to get into the Hall of Fame, Mike, because there's some credibility issues there. If
You
she's
got to
not
be
going
over 5'3".
to, well, in that case, she's out for sure. No, but massive congratulations to her. Like I said, I love the field. I love them speaking up. I don't know where like the Predator response to the women was, well, it's a WPA event, which was kind of interesting because they were passing the buck, it seemed like, while acknowledging the social media criticism. On the other hand, you kind of have the opposite approach when it comes to Josh and just, trying to put the World 8-Ball Championship on a pedestal and it's a great this, it's a great that. And a lot of criticism when it comes to the referees and, slug racks and things like that, Mike. I'm I feel like it's a broken record with this group, Mike. Consistently, and it's the same like trio of Pro Beard Series, WPA, and EPBF refs. And I hate to keep on like harping about the same things over and over and over again, but they can't seem to get out of their own way, Panozzo, consistently.
Well, I mean, we all know that they don't do anything wrong in Europe when it comes to, the game of pool, what decisions should be made, what format should
Am
be
I
made.
sensing some sarcasm, Mike, from you?
It's been this way with the European billiard group for decades, so it's not surprising.
Well, that team in the Pro Beard Series is filled with Europeans, so shocking enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, kudos to them for putting it on. For me, Mike, the one thing that I did love, well, number one, look, I still like. I'm going to go back to the Josh thing for a minute. I still like seeing him win it, just because there's something to be said when it comes to getting shit on over and over and over again, and deservingly. But then you play your way through it, and I still don't want to take away from Josh's greatness because, like I said, there's a good chance he would have been in there no matter what, at least playing on that last day, but to face all that stuff online, and they were seeing it, right? They were posting online. They were, very aware of everything being said. And then to go out there and win is pretty cool, for me,
Well,
Mike.
listen, we all know Josh. When it comes to screwing the cues together and go to the table, he's all business. I don't think he gets I don't think there's a lot of outside distractions for him once he gets his mind squared away that it's time to play pool. So
Well, listen,
he's really good.
let that World 8-Ball Championship had been here in Las Vegas, there would have been some distractions there. I guarantee you, because they would not have been as nice to him here in the States as they were out there in New Zealand. I can promise you that.
Yeah, right. That's true. But we can't talk about New Zealand without talking about the juniors, right?
That's the one I've been waiting for, Mike, and I'm
Yeah,
glad
no,
we
how
saved it
cool
towards
was
the end of
that?
the conversation.
Sophia and Savannah in the final match, Adrian in the final match for the second year in a row. Just, hats off to them. I mean, we've talked about it for the last couple of years. How the increase in junior players and increase in the level of opportunities for the junior players is going to pay off. And we're seeing it start to pay off. We're seeing, there wasn't that many years ago that American players, weren't sniffing medals. So in junior championships. So, to see them, dominate like they did is really cool.
I got a soft spot for him, Mike. I've been following those three kids and a lot of others for the last few years. Getting opportunities to work junior nationals thanks to Shane Tyree. And like I mentioned before, the first time I go over there, I'm just thinking, okay, it's a bunch of kids who are playing pool, and I didn't know how they played, Mike. I'll be honest with you. And then I show up there, and I was blown away at their talent, their composure, their ability to handle pressure. This was like 3-4 years ago, and so to see Sophia and Savannah all those years ago play each other in the finals of like an 8-ball, and then to see them, they're the best rivalry in my opinion at least a top 5 rivalry in pool altogether, but by far the
It's
best, the
unbelievable
biggest
how
rival.
often they play each other in a title match.
It is, and like you can have all these things. You can have like the European Championships have a lot of weight and be very prestigious, and they are. You know, Europe develops monsters year in and year out, and there's a number of young talented players who are just coming through that pipeline because of the system they have in place. But like, there's always been, you know, the American system and the American players have always been like a butt of a lot of jokes. I feel like for so many years, and so to see these two girls be in the final was fantastic. To see Adrian go back to back when he was on the fence to even play the event in general, goes back to another final was awesome. I'm a big fan of all three of those kids, Mike. They got the best character, not the best. They got great character.
Yeah.
They're amazing on the pool table. I didn't know how to root. You know what I mean? Especially with the girls. You know, because it went hill, which is what I was hoping for.
Yeah.
Um, but there was no like if Savannah would have won, I would have been just as thrilled as I am seeing Sophia win. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
and so uh, it's it was great. I really appreciate their level of drive and determination and Americans, man. It's awesome, Mike, especially the kids.
Yeah, no, it's great. Great to see them do well. They both, all three kids are just great kids, smart young kids. Ambitious, dedicated. So yeah, great to see them. Great to see them doing well.
I'm excited to go see Adrian whenever I get back to Sacramento. Hopefully he's there. But I reached out to Sophia. Hopefully we can get her on. I know she's heading out to Ultimate Pool, so we'll see if we can get her on in the coming days as well, Mike. But the only other thing that I would say when it comes to that event as a whole was that besides the obvious like time difference, which is brutal, but that's just part of it when we're watching European pool or like events overseas, right? Um, I really wish that each event would have had more of its own stage in its own right, like in its own like way, because it was a lot going on and it was hard to like get like really invested into it because there's a lot of different things pulling different ways, Mike, when it comes to
Yeah.
a women's world 9-ball, a men's world 8-ball, and then all the junior events going on as well.
Yeah, it was a lot thrown into one ballroom, and it kind of looked like it, but that's the way they run these events these days. When Predator does it, it's usually two or three at least events, on top of each other: women's, juniors, teams, men's, whatever it is. It's economy of scale. So that's just what we have to get used to with those events.
Yeah, yeah. I just I there's compelling stories within it all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like with the women's, I mean, Christina was a great story. Just seeing how she has been playing over the last year. Siming Chin and Rublin, like we mentioned before, Mike. Um, the Allison response, but then the kids and the Europeans and the Americans, and then the men's. You got Ryan, who you couldn't point him out of a lineup to start the event, and then he ends
Yeah.
up in the final. And for all the talk of like a watered down field, you still have, Taiwanese players who are monsters, great Europeans who play strong 8-ball consistently. Like there's a lot of good things that you can focus on throughout the event where, like I said, during it, it's just it kind of gets spread a little thin for
Yeah.
my money.
Well, the Asians dominated the women's event. Holy cow.
I mean, no surprise, I guess, right, Mike? I mean, I know we're used to seeing Allison and Kelly late, right?
I think it was like seven out of the final 8, or 11 out of the last 16 or so. It was a lot. But when you have those events in Asia and all the Asian players show up, it's tough to fade. It's like when you go to Europe and it's 70% of the field's European players who are all comfortable playing around home. They tend to take up most of those final spots. So yeah, it was a pretty strong statement by the Asian players there, and just another reason why we'd love to see them more on the international stage, which is why I'd like to see more events in Asia. because they don't with the majority of events in Europe and then some in the U.S. We miss out on a lot of the Asian players in a lot of tournaments.
Well, I think that's where you got to give credit to the Pro Beard Series and what they're doing, right? Because they are putting on events that are allowing us to see these women that we don't get to see regularly. So I know we get Wei coming over here to the States, but the Seemings and Cheskas and Rubelins and
Yeah,
Shashas, and it's like when we have these predator events on is whenever we get to see them all compete, which is what I want to see more of. Like you, Mike, I want to see them all battled out, because I remember last year, like I mentioned before, of Pia getting, like, I think third place in the China Open, and seeing the rise that she's been on, and then, like I said, Christina, and there's just like, Cheska comes out of nowhere and shows up twice a year, and then she's like in a quarterfinal consistently, if not in a final, and it's just like, I want to see more. I'm thirsty for more of their greatness, and they're exciting to watch as well, because a lot of them have a pretty good pace of play for the most part.
yeah,
And you can see they're ultra talented players, Mike. So
yeah,
um, there's so many things that you look at and can dissect and just appreciate whenever you watch them play.
yeah, yeah. No, great stuff.
Here in the U.S., Mike, Seattle Open was going on as well. Georgie snaps off that. I don't know if you got to follow any of that event, but it was full of drama in its own right, Mike.
Um, yeah, no, I saw the tail end of the final match. Plenty of drama for sure. But yeah, good event. Surprising, Final Four, surprising finalists. You looked at it ahead of time and you thought, well, there's a chance for Tyler and or Oscar to kind of, put a little padding into their kitty going into Hanoi as far as trying to make Team USA. And both of them, neither one of them went very far. So that was surprising. But, Lucas, even had he won, $6,000 doesn't put him into the equation. But it's good to see him, play well in a field like that. Georgia, I really don't know a whole hell of a lot about, but
He probably would have been like a top, like the fourth or fifth player you would have picked to make it out of that field.
yeah,
Just all things considered, by far it was, for me anyway, the storyline was, Oscar and Tyler going into it. Tyler loses to Jeremy Long. Oscar loses a 9-1 lead to Lucas, who ends up going into the finals after beating Oscar. Big missed opportunity for Oscar, especially considering how he was trying to make up ground on Tyler.
yeah,
Tyler loses to Jeremy Long, like I mentioned in the
yeah,
round
yeah,
prior,
yeah,
and it really just opened up where you thought, Jonas goes out as well. So it was, everything seemed to be in favor of, this is where, if you're Oscar, you can make a move to shorten it up. And losing that match to Lucas was a big disappointment, and I haven't had a chance to talk to him a whole lot since then, but I know he was pretty upset with himself after that. But now we're heading into the Wolves Den, Mike, and more opportunity for these Americans. Lucas, it's great. Like you, Mike, okay, you can pick up some money. I'm not sure what he's like, if he just wants to go out and play, or
yeah.
if
I
he's
don't
really,
think that he's. I don't think he's. To me, he's shown no interest in chasing anything other than
yeah.
next tournament, the next gambling match, playing off, and whatever. And that's fine. He's at that age. That's what he wants to do now. Knock yourself out. He's got a lot of talent. I'd love to see a point where he turns it into some tournament regularity, and let's see how he does on, events where there's not a lot of forgiveness. See how he does in those situations. But you'd love to see him take a shot at it because he's obviously got a ton of talent.
Yeah, it just seems like, listen, it's great that he went out there and did his thing and got into a final, but like, if I think about the overall, it just seems like a kind of a half-ass kind of effort, Mike. It's like, what, like, do you want to compete and make a realistic Mosconi Cup run, or not? And if you don't, that's okay. There's nothing
Yeah,
wrong with it. But you're just not going to be a part of that conversation when it comes to like a top five kind of American, or even just being part of that discussion, if that makes sense, Mike. And it's
I
not a
don't even
knock on the kid.
No, I don't think he even considers himself into discussion. No, I don't
Yeah,
think
yeah.
and that's fine. Like I said, I just hope there comes the day where that becomes a little more of a, an aspiration.
Yeah, for sure. You can tell he's got a lot of talent. Obviously, shown that he's got a lot of heart.
Yeah,
Coming back from that 9-1 deficit, he's a grinder of a player for sure. Whether he's gambling or in a
yeah,
tournament, and so you got to give him props there for sure. But like I said, now everyone's going to be heading over to the East Coast. Wolf's Den Wolf's Den's coming up. Or no, there's a Pennsylvania event, ain't there, Mike? It's
yeah.
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania right now.
Is it right now?
Yeah, and then Wolfstein is after that, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. So there's actually two more tournaments then
Yeah,
for these
correct,
Americans and Europeans.
correct.
I haven't looked at the players list. I know that they posted it the other day. Um, the European side seems to be kind of just staying the course, but really the whole talk and the storyline are either going to be spoilers in that tournament or Americans trying to make moves in that tournament. Mike,
Yeah, it's which event are we talking about here now?
Pennsylvania,
Okay.
Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Pennsylvania. I mean, that starts tomorrow or Friday, goes through the weekend, and then a week later is Battle of the Bull at Virginia. So, yeah, those are again, these are just opportunities for guys. You're essentially looking at three guys, right? Tyler, BJ, Oscar, um,
Billy.
Billy. Yeah,
Yeah.
to see who can put a little run together, make up a little ground money wise, and get some momentum going into Perry Open in Hanoi. So a lot of these guys essentially have 4 tournaments coming up ahead of them to make some moves.
It's crunch time. It's time to finish what you started, and so and it's still very much neck and neck where one or two events can make a huge difference, especially right now, and
Yeah,
especially if you're on the fringe and you have a captain in sky who is going to start weighing wins and losses and things like that. So everything's going to kind of be under a microscope from here on out, Mike, and as it should be, and it really makes these events just that much more worth watching than what they would have been otherwise.
yeah.
So I like it being at the end of the year, because this is where it's the fun part of the race. Where
Yeah, you want it to
now
come down to you want to come down to a handful of tournaments that are bam, bam, bam right after the next, and you get some really good action going, some really good activity. So the guy that's in the toughest spot going into this next 4 event string to me is Skyler.
why do you say that, Mike?
He's going to have a decision to make on his other wild card. It's not going to be an easy one, and no matter what he picks, it's not going to be universally accepted. So, it's got to be weighing on his mind a little bit, I would think.
It has to be considerably, and because there's going to be so much, or there's a potential for being scrutiny one way or the other, depending on which road you take, and so I think you can make arguments for a lot of guys. And I'm sure it's something that's been on his shoulders and will be on his head for the next few weeks or whatever it is. And I'm excited for it because there's going to be plenty of talking points and plenty of things to kind of are going to be favorable for one guy, and then they're going to weigh the other way for the other guy. And so it's this time of year, right, Mike?
Yeah, it is.
Um, so
It's scoreboard watching time, which is always a lot of fun.
in the best way. And this is where like this cup full of pool that is overflowing is awesome, So every
Yeah,
week there's something better and better, and like nothing, at least on the American side, like there's no shortage of drama with it, So because when Tyler loses to Jeremy and Oscar's up 9-1, I'm thinking, okay, Oscar's gonna make a move, and then oh no, wait a minute, he doesn't, and so BJ not being there, Billy not being there, and just little things like that are like, well, okay, now what's going to happen when you have this big $45,000 at a tournament here in the States coming up, So
yeah,
it's a great time to be a pool fan for sure.
yeah, yeah. We got a big event going on in China right now too, right?
What's going on over there, Mike?
WNT event, this Zen and Wan 8 open. All the Filipinos are there. Taiwanese players, Chinese players. So, really good field there. All the Chua, Rhoda, Regulario, Asis, Aranis, Robbie Capito. Really strong field.
Well, we don't know who's going to be making wild card picks for the Reyes Cup, which hopefully we get some.
We don't even know who's going to be making a decision on who gets the wild card picks for the Reyes.
That's what I'm saying. Let alone who's going to get out there, who's going to make the team. But it's still moving opportunities for some of these guys, so that makes it worth watching. I haven't checked out the tournament board, Mike, to see where everyone's at. But there's a question here, Mike. Who would you guys choose to be the wild cards for the USA Mosconi Cup team? I think we answered this on one of our previous shows. I wonder if you're still staying the same way.
To me, you're still in a fight for. To me, the wild card comes down to, and just because of history and friendship and all that stuff, comes down to Billy, and whichever one between Oscar and Tyler does not get the third spot. So you're picking between those two. To me, that's all it's down to right now.
So you think that it's between that Billy's going to make the team and
Oscar? No, I think that the wild card is going to be between Billy and whichever of Oscar and Tyler don't get the third automatic spot. If Tyler gets the third automatic spot, then the wild card is going to be between Oscar and Billy. If Oscar gets the third automatic spot, the wild card is going to be between Tyler and Billy.
And who would you pick?
Oh, I'm not even going there. I really don't know because.
What do you mean you're not going there, Mike? This is what we do.
I say I go with the guys who've been out there playing, and competing and winning some big matches, and I haven't seen Billy do a lot of that. So that's where that's what my head would tell me. Now, if Skylar said, "Listen, I was on the team last year. We need something more. We need some spirit, and it can't be just like a sideline cheer and bib overalls." So I'm picking Billy. I wouldn't, I don't know if I would agree with them, but I wouldn't rag him for it. Right?
I know you ain't asking me that question.
Well, I know you're.
No.
I know where you're at. You think it should be Tyler and Oscar.
I think from a merit standpoint, it should be.
I said too, from a merit standpoint, the guys who are out there putting in the time, doing the travel, winning some they both won some good matches against good players this year. From that standpoint, that's the way you would think it would go. But like I said, knowing Skylar, knowing that he's been on that team, knowing that he's sitting there thinking what he wants to give his team the best chance to win. And I was there last year and heard all the Europeans say they needed a Billy Thorpe, not necessarily Billy the greatest player in the world, but they needed a Billy Thorpe on that team. They had nothing to get them out of a rut. They had nothing to get them fired up, whatever. So if Sky said, I've sat through that, I agree, we need him, I think this gives us a better chance to win. Like I said, I wouldn't rag him for it. I don't know if I'd agree with him 100%, but I wouldn't say, listen, you just did this because Billy's your buddy. I wouldn't say that. I would think that he really thought about it and had a hard time making the pick. And if that's the way he went, I would let him. It's his call.
Interesting comment here from Ray. Always thoughtful. The two have separated themselves. The rest you're making a stretch case for. Well, here's the thing.
100%. But I'm not.
I don't think it's 100%, Mike. I don't think it's 100% because you have opportunities to separate yourself, but the fact that there's not been that like stamp at this time of year, you know what I mean, to like really seal the deal and close your case,
well, I think
leaves it open for discussion.
I think what Raymond was talking about is they have separated themselves based on merit, right?
Well, yes, yeah.
Separated themselves from Billy.
Right? Yes, yeah.
So that's not an argument.
Well, but it's not. The door isn't closed or the window isn't closed, whatever you want to say, Mike, so it's, and this is where by the events you're playing, Tyler picking up an extra 6,000 would have made a big difference. Oscar picking up an extra 6,000 would have made a big difference. So whatever they do out there in Pennsylvania is going to make a big difference. To shut the door on their case. Now, throughout the year, I don't think Billy's been in that same discussion when it comes to them. You can't argue it when it comes to results, Mike. You can't argue when it comes for me as far as quality of wins and things like that for either one of those two guys. I still believe that Tyler and Oscar should be on that team 100%. But funny things have happened at the end of the year, Mike, and I don't think we've seen the last turn yet of that drama situation that is going to be the American Five. So this is where watching Pennsylvania, watching the Wolf's Den, watching Hanoi. There's a Perry event prior to. There's 4 events where guys can really make a run, and if you ain't there yet, you got a chance to get there. But at the end of the day, right? You ain't going to get there from cheerleading or clapping or firing anyone's ass up. You're going to go out there by getting quality wins and going deep in events, Mike. That's it. So for all the like rah, rah, rah stuff, listen, if you can't get fired up from the American fans that are going to be out there in Florida rooting for you, which by the way, they sold out or close to being sold out over there after you got embarrassed the year prior. So like if you can't pull from like emotional let's go kind of attitude from that, it's what are you really gotten here is what I would say, Mike. But we'll see,
Yeah.
we'll see. It makes for interesting discussions coming up in the next month or so or whatever. So uh, anyway, Mike, I didn't expect the show to go this way. If I'm being honest with you.
You're the ringmaster. You gotta lead us.
No. Listen, I put my foot in my mouth enough over the last however many weeks.
Well, listen,
It's
this is not the last conversation. We're going to be about how the Mosconi Cup race is going for the final 2 spots for Team USA. So, uh, we'll be bringing up this subject again a few times between now and Hanoi, and even after Hanoi. I don't even know what the deadline is for submitting the team after Hanoi. Given
I thought that. Oh yeah. I know what you're saying. Yeah.
I
don't know either.
It will only be about 6-7 weeks away. I would think that that it would have to be pretty quick.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, we've seen in years past where they had a deadline and then they extended it, right? Because Jeremy asked
that was after the international, which is usually doesn't even end until November.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So, but that deadline is coming soon, and I still feel like it's going to be an exciting finish. And I mean, look, this is why, part of the reason why I can really appreciate what they got going on over there in Matchroom, because it makes the year's tournaments worth watching. I remember last year they had a Pro Beard Series points list. I don't even know whatever happened to that thing, And so it's like you can take one tournament for itself. And I love watching 8-ball. I love watching 10-ball. I love watching these teams. But like I also like in other sports where like I have a whole season to see what's going to happen. Does that make sense?
So every event means something for another end. So it goes on. Yeah, absolutely.
Still lots of drama coming up in the coming weeks. I'm going to be here for like another week or so, Mike. Willie asked, "How does it feel to be in the Hall of Fame now, Mike?" We're gonna get. I'm gonna be out there at the Hall of Fame. Hopefully, you let me in, Mike, to go and
$130 tickets online. Tickets are online for $130, buddy.
How can people get it? How can people tune in if they want to watch the Hall of Fame induction ceremony, Mike?
It won't be aired. It won't be streamed live. No.
What do you mean? It won't be streamed? Everything's streamed live these days.
What's that?
Everything is streamed live these days, Mike.
Not that. This is exclusive stuff. You got to be in the room. I mean, we tape it and edit it. No one wants to sit there for an hour while you're eating dinner.
But they want to hear the stories, wouldn't they?
I'm sorry?
They're going to want to hear the stories.
Yeah, there's going to be, it'll be taped and edited and then it'll be put out there.
Who wants to watch it after the fact? Man,
It's
listen,
not
we
a
got
tournament.
who,
It's not
who are
like
the
not like you missed the final.
Come on, Mike. We want to see things live. Me and you got to talk off air, Mike, about this. We gotta figure out this. We got to figure out some. We got to put some new blood in here, Mike. Right, some new ideas. Everything's streamed these days, Pinozo. We got to figure it out.
I am going to say this.
Okay, say this.
It's what, 2 months out?
Okay.
More than 2 months out, and it's basically oversold from what we originally planned. So we're looking at bigger rooms. So it is going to be 300, 350 people, easy. It's going to be a great event, a great night. And so I'm going to be posting something in the next week with a hard deadline for ticket sales.
Look, put me in there and I'll give you the 150 when I see you in December, Mike. I'll give you the 150 in cash whenever I see you. Okay?
If you're planning on going to Mosconi Cup, don't think you're going to wait until you get there to buy a ticket to the Hall of Fame banquet. So when we post that about a deadline of, say, October 15th, that's going to be it. So I would encourage people, if you're going to be at Mosconi Cup and you're going to be there Friday earlier in the day, get online at usbma.com and get yourself a ticket. It's going to be great. It's going to be great.
You think Shane's going to – what's the over-under on the amount of words that Shane says?
I think Shane's going to – you know what? The great thing about the Hall of Fame banquet is people say more than you expect them to say, and they reveal more than you've ever expected them to reveal. I mean, we saw that with Niels last year. We saw that with Torsten. We saw, these guys, they talk about stuff that they haven't even talked about in interviews that I've had with them over the years. And so that's the opportunity that they have, is to get up there and talk to people about what everything really means to them and how they got where they got. And it's not a television interview or an interview for an article in Billiards Digest. It's them just talking to you as a fan. And that's what makes it so cool.
I can't wait to hear the stories. I ain't even worried about seeing Shane, Mike. I want to see you get inducted because you're a pretty good speaker yourself. So that's really what I'm looking forward to. I'm going to be out there. Hopefully you guys will too. Mosconi Cup's going to be great. One last thing before we get out of here, Mike. Emily mentioned about going to Manila and getting what do you call it? Getting announcing the venue.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm expecting in the next, if they're there and Carl's out there. So if they're bringing Carl and Jake out there, they're planning on doing some video announcements, right? They're not just out there doing a site visit and signing contracts. So that's why I expect sometime in the next 2 days, I expect end of the week or over the weekend for them to stream an announcement or post a video announcing the site and what the captain situation is going to be for the Reyes Cup.
Are you going, Mike?
I am going.
So you'll go to the Reyes Cup, but you didn't go to the U.S. Open.
I couldn't go to the U.S. Open. I told you guys that. I was committed.
Emily's pissed at you.
I got more than one job. What's that?
Emily's pissed at you for sure for not going to the U.S.
That's
Open.
True. She's been pissing me for since she got her. She got that job.
Wow. Just make sure whenever you walk in the room, let me know so I can have the camera rolling to get that response, Mike. So to hear the 4-letter word that's coming out of her mouth as that happens. I'm going to try to be out there in Manila as well. I cannot wait. I'm pumped to head overseas and check out some great pool. I've heard nothing but awesome things about it. It's going to be a long stretch coming up pretty soon. But Mike, are you free later on this week? I'd love to do more stuff with you.
Yeah. I'll be around.
I'm sure we're going to have more reaction. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Big shout out.
Let's talk WPA. Let's talk about WPA.
Oh, wait. You want to talk WPA and not giving the refunds? Is that what you want to talk about? Are you free? Are you free tomorrow, Mike?
That's an interesting subject, that whole refund thing.
Okay. Are you down to discuss it, Mike? Don't start getting scared now.
I'm not scared of anything.
Okay. We've already been on 55 minutes. We'll come back tomorrow and we'll chop it up, or if not, we'll do it Friday at the latest. Appreciate all you guys for hanging out with us and everyone for tuning in. Hit the like, hit the share.